Pembrokeshire is a county in the far southwest of Wales, today associated with seaside, castles and puffins. Many places in Pembrokeshire also have a special connection to the Tudor family, the royal family of England between 1485 and 1603. In particular, Henry Tudor, or Henry VII, the first king of the Tudor dynasty, lived some of the most significant moments of his life in this windswept county. Before delving any further into Pembrokeshire's Tudor landmarks, we first need to understand the family dynamics of the Wars of the Roses and how they influenced Henry Tudor's childhood and adolescence. The Wars of the Roses were a 32-year-long conflict for the English throne that was largely contested between the two houses of Lancaster and York, two branches of the English royal line that originated from the Plantagenet king Edward III. While not belonging to the direct Lancastrian line, Henry descended from key figures of the House of Lancaster. His father, Edmund Tudor, was the son of Catherine of Valois, the mother of the Lancastrian King Henry VI, while his mother, Margaret Beaufort, was the great-granddaughter of John of Gaunt, the founder of the Lancastrian house. Having been born less than 2 years after the First Battle of the Wars of the Roses, the conflicts largely defined Henry's childhood and early adulthood. As the balance of power shifted between the Lancastrians and Yorkists, the Tudors themselves fluctuated between positions of power and periods of forced exile as enemies of Yorkist kings Edward IV and Richard III. Two areas of Pembrokeshire played a significant role in the fate of the Tudors during the Wars of the Roses. The first is Tenby, today a touristy seaside resort and one that was particularly popular in the Victorian era. In the 15th century, Tenby was a well-fortified town where a 14-year-old Henry Tudor and his uncle, Jasper, sheltered after Edward IV had regained the throne and ousted Henry VI at the battles of Barnet and Tewkesbury in 1471. Tenby's sturdy defences had been shored up on the orders of Jasper himself when he was Earl of Pembroke in 1457, and they helped to repel besieging Yorkist forces before the Tudors were able to escape to the relative safety of Brittany. Today, a blue plaque commemorates the alleged site through which they escaped. The Tudors remained in exile for the next 14 years as the Yorkists continued to occupy the throne. As covered earlier in this video, Henry was distantly related to the Lancastrian line and was not, on paper, a likely man to take hold of the English crown. Within the House of Lancaster, the strongest claims, of course, lay with the main line descended from Henry IV and Henry V, which consisted of Henry VI and his only son, Edward of Westminster. Yet, Edward was killed in the Battle of Tewkesbury, and shortly afterwards Henry VI was dead too, having been imprisoned in the wake of the battle. The main line was thus extinguished, and the number of potential figureheads among the Lancastrian line was growing thin. Henry Tudor was therefore becoming a more viable claimant to the throne. The early death of Edward IV in 1483 provided a key opportunity. While the crown initially transferred to the king's 12-year-old son, Edward, briefly making him Edward V, Edward IV's brother, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, quickly seized the throne to become Richard III. The young Edward and his younger brother Richard of Shrewsbury subsequently disappeared and were widely rumoured to have been murdered on the orders of Richard III. An in-depth look into the theories surrounding the true fate of the so-called princes in the Tower is beyond the scope of this video, but the resulting divide Richard III's usurpation caused among the Yorkist hierarchy is undeniable. It was a significant turning point in Henry Tudor's life. He was emerging as the most realistic alternative candidate for the English throne against a king who was making a dangerous number of enemies. This brings us to the second area of wartime importance, Mill Bay, just west of the town of Milford Haven. The area around Mill Bay had been a well-known harbour for centuries, with it being the launching point for Henry II's 1171 invasion of Ireland. Later on, a French force arrived in this area in 1405 to support Welsh rebel forces led by Owen Glendower. Now, in 1485, it was the place the Tudors chose as their landing site to begin an attack against the kingship of Richard III. 2 weeks and a day after landing at Mill Bay, having plunged their way through mid-Wales and into England, their charge was successful. Richard was slain and Henry was crowned king of the Battle of Bosworth Field. Henry subsequently married Elizabeth of York, the daughter of the late Edward IV, thus effectively uniting Lancaster and York under the Tudor name and calming the bitter 3-decade-long feud. The remaining 2 areas in this video don't directly relate to the Wars of the Roses, but have their own significance in the history of the Tudor family. There can be few more significant places in Henry VII's life than Pembroke Castle, where the future king was born in 1457. The statue outside the castle commemorates Pembroke's most famous son, but the accompanying plaque stops short of describing the harrowing circumstances surrounding his birth. His mother Margaret Beaufort was just 13 years old at Henry's birth, and his father Edmund had died months before he was born. Edmund Tudor was an early casualty of the Wars of the Roses era, dying of bubonic plague at or around 26 years of age in 1456. Although Edmund's tomb was first held in a Franciscan friary in Carmarthen, it was moved after the friary was dissolved in 1538 by Henry VIII, incidentally Edmund's grandson, during his dissolution of the monasteries and break from the Catholic Church. The tomb was moved across the border to Pembrokeshire, where it can be seen in one of the county's most popular attractions, St David's Cathedral. And there we have it, 4 different locations and their significance for one family and, above all, one man who defied the odds to become king and establish one of the most important dynasties in English history. Thank you for watching.